I'm Bella,
Welcome to Holy Matrimony.
a podcast where we discuss my journey into the world of professional wrestling.
And each week, I'm going to guide you through my ultimate obsession.
But first, we actually have a new or different podcast today than we normally do. So let's get through all of our details so we can get to that. We do release episodes every Thursday. You can follow us on social media. That way you could stay up to date. We've been doing a lot of fun reels. We are on X and Instagram. That's at Holy Matrimony. So HOLYMATCHRIMONY. If you're listening to the podcast, we're on most of the major podcast players. For those of you who watch us, and if you would like to watch us, we are also on YouTube. It's the Holy Matrimony Podcast. So that's youtube.com/@holymatrimony.
Yes, so please like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, all those things to let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see and hear from us. We'd love to hear from you. It really helps us out. We really appreciate it.
We sure do. Now I'm excited for this one.
I'm very excited for this one.
So it's a little different. I think most of what we've done so far, except probably episode 1, revolves around more current WWE or wrestling events.
Yes.
This one, we're kind of going back in time a little bit.
Taking a throwback here. So, do you want to say what it is?
Oh, this is all you.
Okay. So, we are talking about two of the greatest of all time and whose side we're on. Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels.
Yes. Based on our shirts, for those watching, I think you know who's who. But we'll definitely discuss that.
Yes.
I think we should throw back a little bit and talk about kind of why we're here.
Okay.
So, first of all, I've said many times through our podcast and our episodes of when you've talked about certain people and you bring certain people up. Well, one of them is definitely Shawn Michaels.
He's just a sexy boy.
Sexy
boy.
I waited. I wasn't sure if you were going to do it.
Oh, yeah. I'm
like,
doing it every time.
Which, first of all, funny with his theme song or his song.
Song, yeah.
Do they call him theme song?
Entrance.
Oh, entrance. Thank you. I was like, what is the word? You are not somebody who just sings and, that's just not you.
Yep.
You're pretty reserved when it comes to that, but man, you will sing Shawn Michaels' Sexy Boy song all the time.
I will, because it's one of the best theme songs.
And I think because you did that, I don't want to say you've talked about him the most, definitely amongst the most.
Yes.
But I always knew Shawn Michaels was the sexy boy.
You knew about that before you knew what he looked like, knew who he was, anything.
Yeah, that was one of the people for wrestling you talked about all the time because you'd sing his song. I mean, I knew he was the Heartbreak Kid because you just talked about him. I never had seen him.
Yes.
Wouldn't even know what he looked like, but you always talked about him. And every so often you'd throw in little jabs at Bret Hart. And I was like, okay, I don't know. I wasn't going to question you because I wasn't into it then. But wow, you really like Shawn Michaels. And you kind of mentioned it. I just didn't know at the time.
Yes. So we'll set the record straight now. I know we talked a few weeks ago that my favorite wrestler, I've gone back and forth. My favorite wrestler of all time is Shawn Michaels. Now, I say it's different at times because he's not currently wrestling. Obviously, he's been retired for years now, so he's not my current favorite wrestler. But he is my favorite wrestler of all time.
Now, is it because he's a sexy boy, or is it because he's just that good of a wrestler?
I mean, the sexy boy doesn't hurt, but definitely because he's that good of a wrestler.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure.
Yes. So I have talked about him for a long time, and anybody who's into wrestling at all, knows that Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart have had a massive feud, both behind the scenes and in front of the camera.
Oh wait, behind the scenes? You've never told me this.
Oh yes, that's something we haven't got into that we'll probably have to get more into.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay. So, I've joked a lot that you're either a Bret Guy or a Shawn Guy. I don't think that's why that's true. I know there's people that like both. There's a lot of current wrestlers who looked up to both of them and enjoy both of them. But I think that most, or at least in my opinion, what I've seen, a lot of wrestling fans pick a side as to whose side they're on, Bret or Shawn.
And I think you asked somebody at your work, who's a wrestling fan, and you're like, I'm just going to go ask, is he a Bret Guy or Shawn Guy? He'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And he answered you.
Immediately, yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm a Shawn Guy.
So you say, obviously there's people who can like both.
Yes, and I do like both. I just like one considerably more.
Yeah, but I could see where this is like a wrestling trope. I don't know what the right word is. Where if you do ask somebody, they're gonna pick one,
Yes.
even if they like both, right?
Yes. Yeah, like you know, I was listening to a podcast the other day and somebody asked them about like the current day rap music, the Drake Kendrick feud, and somebody was like, "What's that alternative in wrestling?" And somebody was like, "Oh, Bret and Shawn." Like it's that
Mm-hmm.
type of thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So obviously, I never knew what you're talking about until now, and we'll
Mhm.
get more into that too. Um, but yeah, you Bret Guy or Shawn Guy, and you're clearly a Shawn Guy.
Oh yeah. Yes. I mean, I've been watching Shawn Michaels. He came back around in the early 2000s, and I was watching him back then. And so I actually first knew Shawn Michaels from his second run after he hurt his back and came back.
Are you talking about Dora hair, Shawn
I,
Michaels?
I'm talking about after Dora hair, but yes, he came back with the Dora hair.
Which we'll get into that too. I want
Yes.
to know when you got into him.
Yeah.
Dora hair or sexy boy hair?
It was after Dora hair, but he definitely did not have sexy boy hair.
Sexy boy hair was old school.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Clarification question.
Yes. So that's how I first got to know
Hmm.
Shawn Michaels, and he was great back then. I mean, and then as I got more into wrestling, I was like, oh, this dude's been doing it forever, and I started watching older matches. I went back and watched his '90s stuff, and I mean, he's widespread to be considered one of the best of all time.
Perfect. Now, even more, for some of you asking, well, why are we here? How did we get here? Because I talk all the time about how I can barely keep up with wrestling, and that's what's going on now. I don't even watch all of it, right? I don't watch NXT. I don't watch anything outside of WWE.
Right.
So, how are we here? How did Will get you here? Well, it's this funny random story at I can't remember which store or
Yeah.
wouldn't name it. But there was a Bret Hart action figure.
Yes.
For those of you watching, you can see it right here by me. And I remember we'd go in, and I want to say it was on sale.
I think it was on clearance.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
because they were getting a new version. Because
Yes.
we remember like weeks later they got the new one. So this one, it's not because he sucks. Nobody wants him. Thank you. It's because
Mm.
they were getting an updated version of him.
Yes. Yes.
And I remember the first time you saw it, you were like, "Oh, that's cool." And you looked, you're like, "It's kind of still too much."
Yes.
Because it barely was on clearance. It was like a couple dollars off. That's stupid. Don't call
Yeah.
it clearance.
Yes.
And I was like, and I didn't say it then, but I was like, okay, I thought he didn't like Bret Hart,
Right.
Just from the few interactions that you've brought him up, I was like, he doesn't like him. And every week we'd go back and you'd look, and I think finally I was like, I thought you didn't like him. Why are you gonna get him? And I can't even remember your response actually.
I think I said like, well, it's complicated.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, whatever, I'm not gonna ask.
Yeah.
And then finally we went like weeks later, and they had actually marked it down to like a clearance price, like a
Yeah.
true clearance price.
Yes.
And you got it and you were excited. And I think I was asking, I'm like, what are you talking? Like, if you don't like him, why are you getting an action figure of him?
Yes.
And I don't think you still answered me, really.
Because it's complicated. It's not that I don't like Bret Hart. I think he's good. I just think that Shawn Michaels is better, and Shawn Michaels has been right.
Yeah, and we'll see. We'll see. Because
Yes.
what then happened was this was around the time I started getting into wrestling.
Yes.
And so I think I finally just asked you, like, okay, well, what's up? What's going on? And you were very adamant that you were going to show me matches and I was going to see why you like Shawn Michaels so much and why he's better than Bret Hart. Is
Yes.
that about how you think it went?
Yes. That is what I said to you when we started this.
And I want to say the first match you showed me was Dora Hair. I know some people probably are not going to like that I call it, but it was Dora Hair Shawn Michaels. And I was confused because I'm like, this is the sexy boy. Why does his hair look like that?
Yes.
That doesn't make sense. You're like, no, that's not his haircut. He also had the brown pants
The
on.
the poop brown pants. Yes.
And I'm like, I don't think a sexy boy looks like this. The Heartbreak Kid, I don't know whose heart he's breaking looking like that. And so I don't think I even paid attention to the match because I was so, like, I guess, drawn to and, like, distracted by his pants and his hair.
Yes. So yes, I showed you that match. And that's my fault for showing you a match that I probably shouldn't have right away. Because that's one of the first matches when he came back from his back injury. He'd
Mm-hmm.
been gone for like 7 years. He was no longer a kid, a boy, if you will. He's like sexy man now. But he wasn't necessarily fully ready to come back. So he had like a weird haircut. his trunks weren't fully made yet. Like it was all these things that I could see where if that's your first introduction to Shawn Michaels, you're like, oh, what is this?
And like I said, I didn't even watch his wrestling because I was so distracted. So
Yes.
he could have been great and I didn't know. But then I know it escalated from there because you're like, okay, listen, I'm going to show you a real match. And I said, but how am I going to know if Bret Hart's good? And you said, no, no, I'm going to show you a match where they wrestle the same person,
Yes.
right? So we could see. So do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yes. So I thought, and I'll explain where maybe I have some hindsight now and I should have done things a little differently. I thought, well, I'm going to show them a match where they fight the same person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's even playing field.
Mm-hmm.
There's not like, oh, they're with a better opponent. So no.
And the same show too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Not the same like episode.
Event,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yes. So what I decided to show her was two WrestleMania matches. The first one was WrestleMania 13, where it's Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is WrestleMania 14, where it's Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. So in my mind, I'm, think this is perfect. This is gonna be great. She's gonna see exactly what I'm talking about.
Which side note, you also love Steve Austin.
Yes,
Stone Cold.
Yeah, Stone Cold's one of the best.
And I even know because I watched like a long time ago. Remember before you?
Yes.
Throwback.
Yep.
So I even knew who he was.
Yes.
I know who he is. I obviously get why everybody loves him. I mean, come on. So it was going to be cool for me to watch it because it's also somebody I know and also enjoy.
Yes.
And then I get to see these two people. Plus, for you, you love Steve Austin. So real quick, this is way off tangent. When it comes to Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels is still your favorite.
Yes, I mean, I can admit that I think like Stone Cold's a better talker, and I think his character work and stuff. But like when I talk about all around in ring professional wrestler, Shawn Michaels is still my favorite.
Awesome. So here I am going into this. I don't know Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels. I know Shawn Michaels from everything you've said and the one incident of the Dora haircut and the brown pants. And then I know Stone Cold. So, just watching the match for enjoyment, I'm like, well, I'm going for Stone Cold. So, did we watch the Bret Hart one first?
We did.
Yeah. And I remember watching that match. That was a good match.
Yes, I think you had said, and at this time you haven't watched a ton of matches on TV. You watched some modern ones, and I've shown you a few old ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you'd said like that's the best match I've ever seen so far.
Oh, it was brilliant. So for anybody who knows exactly what we're talking about, you watched it either then, you've watched it since. Obviously, everyone has their different opinions, but I'm sorry, hands down, that was a good match.
No, it is, and I mean, even online, I've seen people say like that's one of the best matches, of all time. Is kind of a great stretch, but
Mm-hmm.
like a great WrestleMania match, one of their best matches. Like it is renowned as being a really good match.
Oh, for sure. And like I said, I didn't even know Bret Hart, and both of them,
Yes.
him and Stone Cold, man, I was like, that's a good match. So I actually went into the next one not expecting the same because I figured they'd be different, but I was like, wow, if that's a good match, and Will like Shawn, like this is going to be another really good match. Now, am I saying the Shawn match was bad? No, I think they both were good matches.
Yes.
But I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, after we were done, I think I was silent for a little bit.
You were.
Because I'm like, I honestly am not doing this to just go against you because obviously we do stuff like that
Yeah,
to each other. I was like, I actually think the Bret Hart match was better. I was like, I truly think that. And I was like, so how do I say this without, just, just purposely being like, oh, I like Bret better. How do I explain this? And I looked at you and I was like, I'm sorry, but that was a better match, right? And what did you say?
I said, yeah, you're right. It was a better match.
So this started the. Oh, I really liked Bret Hart. By the end of the match with Stone Cold, I was like, I was going for Bret Hart. That's the thing. I knew Stone Cold. I was for him. He did so well. He got me so much that at the end I was like cheering for Bret Hart.
Yes.
And so this started I'm a Bret guy, girl, and you're a Shawn guy.
Yes. And the rivalry's ensued ever since.
Yes, because even though you said no, that it was a better match, I think you were more upset because you were like, darn it, I should have shown a better match.
Yes. So here's the thing with me. Again, I've watched a lot of wrestling in my life, and now that I'm older, more mature, I pay attention to matches differently, right? Mm-hmm. So even me, I've seen that match with Stone Cold before, but even me watching it with you, I watched it in such a different light. I even kind of knew going into the next match, I was like, Oh, that was really good. I don't know if the Shawn Michaels match is better than that. And I also, because in hindsight, Shawn Michaels was hurt during the match. That was his last
hmm
match. That's his last match until he comes back in the ones that you saw
Oh,
with the
okay, yeah.
door hair,
Okay.
right? So like he's hurt, his back's hurt. Like in hindsight, that probably wasn't the match that I should have showed you if I really wanted you to feel that.
Yeah, you definitely should have screened them first.
Yes.
I mean, it would have been deceptive because then I wouldn't have got this joy of just understanding and meeting Bret Hart.
Yes.
But that obviously didn't sway you to be a Bret Guy. That just you realized you should have shown you're still Shawn Guy. And I'm not saying that the Shawn one was bad.
No, of course not.
I just think they were way different caliber.
No, I know you're not saying that. No, it wasn't like it was a bad match. It's just I also think for me that the cool thing about it, as much as we're gonna kind of fight about this and argue about this, is that it did kind of give me a renewed appreciation for Bret Hart.
Mm-hmm.
Because as someone that I was such a Shawn guy, I didn't like Bret Hart. I kind of just didn't like him because I didn't like him. But really watching that match and watching it again, I'm like, okay, yeah, I see where he's really good. I
No,
still don't like him better than Shawn, but I see where he's really good.
like it was even since watching more matches, I'm like, that was a good match. And I get it was a completely different time, right? This was in the
Yes.
90s.
97 was the Bret Austin match.
And obviously that's going to hit closer to my heart because not I wasn't watching in 97, I was young. But when I started watching and I had watched those episodes with like my cousin or I'd watch wrestling with him, it was like probably 99 into the early 2000s.
Yeah, so the feel was a lot more similar to what we saw.
Exactly. So, of course, just because that's what I first saw, and when you're a child, you always want to go back to like those childhood times. That's like the era of wrestling that I knew. So, watching this new stuff, it kind of shocked me because I was like, well, that's not what I remember.
Right.
Then, watching that match, I'm like, oh my gosh, it is so good. And so, not only was it what I remembered and liked, but I was like, I think he's actually really good.
Yes. He is really
hmm
good. Um, but again, I think this is probably a good tie-in to talk about like why there is such a thing for Bret versus Shawn because they're both really good.
Yes, you have because you just threw on me now during this episode filming that they had a behind the scenes feud too, not just the matches.
Yes, and this is also one of those things that I've mentioned to you, and you just haven't listened to me before.
He
But
is literally not. I want you guys to
yes, so
know.
I'll tell you where it ended at. But to get there, Bret and Shawn both considered top guys in their time,
Mhm.
right? Um, Bret kind of wins the title and stuff in a time where the WWE and Vince is going through a steroid trial. So they're trying to push the title and the focus off of really big muscular dudes and put them on smaller guys.
Which Brett was big. That was the other thing I wasn't expecting watching that match with Stone Cold. I didn't realize how big he was. Like Bret Hart was a big dude
He's a big dude compared to now standards.
compared to now. Yeah, well, because obviously like Stone Cold and stuff, and the people I knew from then. But I guess I was so used to seeing now, and then I saw the one Shawn Michaels
Yes.
with the Dora hair, and then to go to I was like, oh, Brett's like a big dude.
Yes. And he is, but when you compare him to like Hulk Hogan
Oh,
and
okay, nobody's like Hulk
but
Hogan.
that's what they're getting out of, right? So
hmm
WWE has these Hogan type people, how big they are, how big he is, and they move into like a smaller guy for the time.
Okay.
So they put it on Bret Hart. So Bret and Shawn feud
Oh,
for the
Brett was the smaller guy.
yes, yeah,
Oh
that's what I'm
my
saying.
goodness.
Bret was considered a smaller guy for the time.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Jeez. Wow. Okay.
So then Shawn Michaels was considered like a really small guy for the time.
Well, yeah. No wonder I'm watching current wrestling, and I tell you all the time, like that guy's kind of small, or he's not really muscular. It's because I remember a time when Bret Hart was the small guy.
Yes.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm learning a lot of new things today.
Yes, you are. So they put the title on Bret, and they go back and forth, and there's Shawn Michaels' backstage attitude at the time. He's not very liked. He can do what he can do because he's very good, so he doesn't get in trouble for a lot of things. But
Mhm.
he's kind of just rude to people, very disrespectful.
Wait,
Right?
Sean, you said?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, he's a sexy boy.
Yeah, pretty much. Right. So he kind of rules like he gets the title and stuff, and like in backstage stuff, he kind of just makes a lot of enemies.
Okay. Like, so this is legit. This isn't
Yes,
like
this
a
is legit.
storyline.
No,
Okay.
this is legitimate. Like, and he's always kind of rubbed Bret Hart the wrong way. Like those two have different matches at their late 90s, or late to mid to late 90s,
Oh, see, I like Brett even more. Yeah, no disrespect. Be
right?
respectful.
And so a lot of things going on behind the scenes that again you could do a whole episodes of podcast about. But so the match we watched was with Austin. It was in '97.
hmm
Okay.
That's the Brett one.
Bret Austin.
Okay.
Yep. And then That's in March of 97.
Okay.
When this kind of culminates is in Survivor Series 1997,
Okay.
and that's in
So
November.
later. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a match. So Brett's the world champion.
Of course.
He's fighting in Canada
Oh, okay.
against Shawn Michaels. So Brett's Canadian. Obviously, that's his home. His home.
So let me guess, he wins.
Well, so
Oh.
Bret Hart's in real life. Bret Hart's contract's coming to an end,
Oh, okay, okay.
and Bret is set. And there's a lot of differing opinions of what this is, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But Bret refuses to lose in Canada.
Yeah.
But his contract's gonna. He's at the next day. He won't be a WWE wrestler.
Oh, so yeah, why would you let him keep the title then?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
So
I
that's
see
the
it.
dilemma that they have. This guy refuses to lose, says he will not lose
In Canada.
in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
but the next day he's gone from the company.
Well, then why would they even do? Well, it's probably because it's scheduled ahead. I get that.
There's a lot of things
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on, a
yeah.
lot of factors, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of conflicting things of what was actually said, right?
Okay.
Brett claims that he promised them he'd come back the next night and lose it on Raw, but they claim that doesn't happen, whatever. But at the end of the thing, Shawn Michaels in the match puts Brett in a very loose sharpshooter, which is his finishing move, right?
Yes.
And Vince McMahon comes out there and demands that they ring the bell and declare Shawn Michaels the winner.
Why not? Okay. Oh, because literally Brett refused to lose. Like he refused to like actually lose.
Yes.
Oh,
So
okay. Wow.
that is known as the Montreal Screwjob.
Oh, and they were probably mad, huh?
Oh, so mad.
Because it's almost worse that Vince had to come out and tell him to lose. They probably were so mad.
Yes. So for years, Vince McMahon takes the heat. I mean, there's different claims, and we don't need to get into him right now. But and Shawn is told like, you say you know nothing about this. Say you didn't know it was happening, but Shawn did know it was happening.
Oh, like he knew that Vince McMahon was going to come out?
He knew that, yes, that they were going to force him to get the title. But for years, he claimed he didn't know.
No, of course.
Right. So that's the last time Brett's seen on WWE TV. He literally jumps ship and goes to WCW, which we've talked about.
Like ever? It's the last time he's ever seen on WWE?
He does eventually come back in the 2000s.
Sorry, my bad.
No, you're good. In the 2000s, he eventually comes back and like makes up. But for a good 10, 15 years, I don't know exactly how long, he's not seen in WWE at all.
Yeah, because he lost his. I mean, I kind of get it, but I get both sides.
Yes. So I mean, there's a lot more to it. Like we could definitely get into that one day. That could be a whole thing we watch.
Of course.
But essentially, that just puts fuel on the fire for like if you're a Bret Guy or a Shawn Guy.
Oh yeah, because it was like such a feud then. Because it wasn't just like, oh, the storyline. It actually like got messed up.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's kind of the background for that feud and why that happened.
I mean, I got to be on Bret's side because that's his home.
Yeah.
We just saw Sammy got a win in Canada.
Yes, but also a lot of people get losses. Drew got a loss in his country,
and they were probably mad. Okay, and if he loses in his country again this year, I'm gonna be mad. I'm not even from there.
Nuclear heat.
Yeah, yeah. So I see. I'm on Bret's side here now. I'm assuming too. Bret was the heel.
Well, so that's.
Or kind of not.
So that's also kind of the thing, right? Like, especially back then, Bret was a heel.
Mm-hmm.
Except when he goes to Canada, they always cheered no matter what.
Oh, but no, I get that. That's what I'm saying. But he was the heel leading up.
Yes.
So, of course, I liked him too. I mean, what was going to happen here?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's kind of.
And Shawn lied. Let's be real. He lied.
He was told to lie, and he eventually. So now, eventually.
Oh, so he would have jumped off the bridge if Vince told him to too?
Probably back then, yes.
Actually, yeah, I know. I think all the wrestlers.
Yeah, probably, yes. So eventually, years later, in the 2000s at some point, I can't not remember what date, but it has to be 2010, somewhere around there, right? Bret comes back. He's not wrestling. He's retired from like in-ring wrestling.
Oh, okay.
Because he gets hurt in a match in WCW, so he has to retire.
Rude.
Yeah. But he comes back and he does make up. And they let bygones be bygone. Him and Shawn do make up. And so since then, they haven't had like a great relationship, but like it's not feuding anymore.
So was that like part of the story for him to come back and be like, oh, Shawn, we're good? Like, what's the point of that? Or because like was Shawn on like a storyline at the time?
I honestly, it's hard for me to remember exactly, but I just know they made a big thing about him making his first appearance in WWE in this many years. He comes back and kind of just to let bygones be bygones and close the loop of the story.
Don't fault Will for that. He was like in high school, High school's rough times.
Yeah. I definitely wasn't fully watching. That was a period where I think a lot of people weren't fully watching. So
yeah, that makes sense.
But he does come back, and in real life, Shawn and Bret have like made up.
So he's never wrestled again with WWE after that. Or okay, yeah, he has. I know. I'm
Uh,
learning that everyone comes back.
so he was. There's a big storyline about like not
Mhm.
storyline, like behind the scenes stuff about him not being able to wrestle like medically, right?
Okay, yeah.
So he technically has matches where he really doesn't do anything.
Oh, okay.
Like he doesn't.
Like they're not good matches.
No, he's usually like with somebody else, or he just kind of somebody else beats somebody up, and he just does the pinfall, right?
Okay, yeah. Mhm.
But there's also this behind the scenes story that maybe it's because I don't know if you've ever heard of Lloyd's of London, but they're like an insurance firm
Yeah. Uh-huh.
where they've insured like boxers' hands, things
Mhm.
like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, he had his body insured by them, so there was like there's clips of him wrestling online during that time, but just not on TV because he didn't want them to find out. So there's clips of him still doing
Okay.
some moves. He's still not great. He's still older,
Yeah,
obviously. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Where like he's doing some moves, but he never did them on TV because he could never have them find out because he was insured and they wouldn't allow him to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Not
That's
his
a
whole
lot.
body. That's
I don't know if
wild.
it's whole body. I don't know the whole
But there was
story.
he was insured by them though.
Some
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
something like that. So,
Okay.
but yeah, so he has technically come back and wrestled some matches, but he's never really got super physical.
Okay, yeah. Like it was never as good as the one I watched.
Not even close. I mean, literally, it was like two moves and that's it. So like
Yeah,
not
yeah.
yeah. So, like when did come back at that time too, he managed like the new Hart Foundation. So that
Mhm.
was Natalia and her husband Tyson Kidd. Like
Oh, okay, yeah. Mhm.
so, like he did do some stuff there. Never really great or anything, but he has been involved here and there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still on his side. I'm still seeing it. I think he's great, you know?
Yes.
Um I do want to say cuz like we said with Sean, I know like I said I watched the Dora Hair one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched the actual WrestleMania one that you showed me. Not bad, just not as good. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I think I want to say I watched one other one or like you showed me like a clip or
We
something.
watched another Elimination Chamber with Shawn Michaels, and that was a little bit later from the Dora hair.
Yes, he had
Yes.
longer hair, which was
Yes.
better and way better pants.
Yes.
So it's not that I just like hate him, but I'm sorry you showed me the wrong match because I've been with Bret Hart since. In a future episode, probably next week, we'll talk a little bit more about some other things I learned about him. But just watching the wrestling, it was really good. Obviously, a lot of people like Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels is great because you also didn't tell me that he manages or what is it?
He runs NXT.
Runs NXT. So clearly he's great too.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Shawn, they're both considered like top of the world in what
Mhm.
they do. It's just there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that makes them have this intertwined history together.
So is Sean better behind the scenes now? Or is he still like that and Brett should have beat him up backstage?
No, so Shawn, by all accounts, has been better. At the time that he left, some point during the time that he's gone from WWE,
Hmm.
he because he's heavily on drugs and he gets
Oh,
off
okay.
drugs,
Well.
um, and he becomes a born again Christian.
Oh, okay.
And so even since then, he's apologized for all of this stuff. Like when he comes back, he eventually reforms DX, which we've talked about.
Yes,
But
yep.
even like the crotch chop he does is different now because he's a little more, you know what I mean?
Yes. Thanks
Um,
for that though. That's a great one.
yes. So
Hmm.
like he's definitely trying to make, his second run was definitely a better, more like, ethical run.
So he pulled like a My Name is Earl
Yeah, basically.
and he went on
Yes.
like a sorry or like redemption tour.
Yes, yeah, basically.
What I think it was, obviously he got hurt and he was gone. I think he got humbled when he came back with Dora hair and brown pants because there's no way I was the only one who didn't like that. There's no way.
I mean, I think true wrestling fans who like Shawn Michaels didn't care.
The brown pants, I get the Dora hair. That's me. People are probably like, "Oh my gosh, you're so ridiculous." It's mean. The brown pants though.
So, anyways, yeah.
You're saying nobody mentioned
No,
that?
I mean it was mentioned for sure.
Like imagine if at that time social media was what it is now. You're telling me there wouldn't be meme after meme after meme of him in brown pants. Those brown pants too.
No, I mean here's the thing. We've seen, especially with like wrestlers coming back, that
Hmm.
social media can be mean.
They are
Right?
mean.
Look at like Sheamus coming back looking not as fit as he used to, and the internet went crazy on
Yeah,
it.
and I tell any one of them, you try to look like him, even like that, or fight him.
Yeah.
Are you gonna go tell Sheamus? See, you say that behind the scenes, but you would never tell Sheamus to his face that he's not as fit as he used to
Okay.
be.
Sound like Drew McIntyre here. You can calm down a little bit.
Well, no, Drew McIntyre did some jokes too, but they're friends. He can. What I'm saying is people are, and obviously I'm hypocritical because I call him Dora hair,
Yes.
but I don't do that online. Well, okay,
You
never
literally
mind.
do.
I'm online right now. Anyway, Sheamus, I would never look at Sheamus and say nothing.
No. But no, I get what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, Shawn Michaels, again, he's had a longer history since then.
Hmm.
He's definitely made a lot of amends and he's done a lot of good things. And so it is kind of this crazy wrestling piece of, that these two had this feud and this massive thing, but it's also like really cool to think and hear about.
Oh yeah, like I said, the whole story for us is like really cool to me because first of all it's just funny.
Yes.
Because my whole goal when you showed me the matches, I was gonna look at you and be like, oh, Bret Hart's clearly better. Obviously just to like poke you a little bit, like poke that bear. But then I watched and I was like, I actually think he is better. And to me, I'm like, that's worse because like it don't hurt your feelings to be like, I'm sorry, he's clearly better. Obviously, I haven't watched it all, so I could say that. But I did just like him overall, and I thought that was a much better match than the Shawn match.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I hope, like, I would like to continue to watch older matches, maybe show
Hmm.
you, because, again, for myself, it's given me a new appreciation for Bret Hart, somebody I didn't particularly care for.
Hmm.
And so, like, I think this would be awesome for us to go through and start looking at more Bret Hart matches, Shawn Michaels matches, really getting in there and comparing more than just what we saw one match from each of them.
Yeah, and I know like it's crazy, like, oh, I'm talking about this, and I I picked this guy just from one match, but it honestly was that good. But I think it also was really significant to my relationship with wrestling, and this is kind of like the point of the podcast. Obviously, that first live event I went to is really what got me into it.
Right.
But this little side thing we did and this whole Brett versus Shawn, that also got me more into it.
Mm-hmm. For
In a
sure.
time when I was like building up to this, because obviously, like at that time I was watching what was currently going on.
Right.
But it was really cool to not only kind of see something that I've always heard you talk about and get to be kind of a part of that, but I do think that match with Bret Hart and Stone Cold was so good that it also got me on that side of wrestling that's not just about the storyline, that it's actually about
The
the
match.
actual match and what they do.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's awesome to, sometimes it just takes one match to get you into it. And that's really cool that was the match that did, you know?
Yeah, so obviously he's always going to be somebody I like because he just was so good. And it was so random. I had no idea what the storyline was leading up to this match. Like I said, I went in fully for Stone Cold, but then Bret Hart did so good that literally at the end I was like cheering for him and I was so excited. Um, I do want to say too, it's really cool to watch what it was like in the 90s.
Oh, them going into the crowd, just the people surrounding them, and yeah.
Way different environment. And I'm not saying that that's what they need to bring back because, people can be like too wild, but just the whole match, that's just not something you see anymore.
No, and I think both those matches did that well.
Oh,
Like,
for sure,
but
yeah.
yeah, the '90s was just the Attitude Era was such a different time.
Best era, let's be real.
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
loving the Triple H era,
Oh, for sure. I mean, Triple H era is probably gonna come up as one of the
but he was part
best.
of that anyway, though.
He was.
So
He
that makes
knows.
sense.
Yes. I also think that this is cool because you're learning a lot more. I mean,
Hmm.
even just talking about Austin, like you didn't know where 316 came from, and I recently talked to you about that.
Yeah, like I always knew Austin 316, but I finally got to see the first part, which we'll talk about, or we've talked about already, that coming through. Oh, no, we're going to talk about that probably in like the King of the Ring
Yeah,
stuff.
like me and you personally have talked about it, but we'll talk
Um,
about that more.
yeah, I had no idea that's where that came from because I didn't even know what King of the Ring was.
Yes.
And then they showed that clip and I was like, that's where that came from? Like, so it is really cool going back and doing this to learn more and see not only like what I already kind of knew, but it did really help me get more into parts of wrestling that I wasn't getting into at the time. And it's hard for me even to be into now still,
Yes.
but it got me there.
Right. And I think that's like you know, today you learned about the Montreal screw job. That's something that we could learn more about because that's a very big piece of wrestling history.
Oh yeah, and this is why we're doing this, right? Just to get
Yes.
this background, but we really wanted to share this story specifically because it's kind of funny and it really shows our journey.
But it means a lot to us.
Yeah, but I'm honestly like just not like fake or like, oh, I'm a Bret. No, I honestly was so impressed with Bret Hart, and I've learned more about him since obviously not everything, not even close.
No.
But there is other aspects about Bret Hart and the Hart family that we're definitely going to talk about. Not now because it's a lot more to get into. Because I probably actually knew more about the Hart family before knowing Bret Hart.
Yes.
But because of that, you're teaching me more. I'm getting more into it. I know a couple weeks ago we watched Natalia, and I was like, you told me that because the first live event she was there.
Yes.
You told me, oh, that's Bret Hart's niece, but I had never actually really seen her have a match, and then to watch it,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, oh, she's actually really good.
Yes. So that's something that I think we definitely have talked about talking about more of
Mm-hmm.
is not only Bret Hart and the Hart family,
Mm-hmm.
but what do they mean for wrestling,
Yes.
and maybe just kind of a broader sense of like, they've trained a lot of pro wrestlers. So what does that look like? What does wrestling training look like? What kind of people out there train wrestlers, and how does that all kind of tie together to what we're talking about now in the modern era?
Yes, and that's definitely what we want to talk about next week is that concept. Because I think when we watched Natalia on Raw that week, I said, "Wow, she's really good," and you're like, "Yeah, all the Hearts are
All the Hearts are good.
good."
Yes.
And it's specifically because of what they've done, not just like on wrestling, but for wrestling. And so, yeah, you're definitely gonna have to give me much more of that background. And I even have like a little background and story, another funny story to get us there, but that's what we'll probably talk about next week.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I think it ties in really well especially because you said it, Shawn Michaels run NXT, which is basically just a training ground for wrestlers, so it kind of all comes full circle.
Which didn't know that either. So yeah, that's definitely where we're gonna have to get there.
Yep, so we could talk about that next week, probably.
Yeah, I'll be here. Will you be here?
I think I'll be here. Hopefully, you'll be here to watch
Will you
and
guys be
listen.
here? I mean, they're gonna be here. I I
Hope
hope. I
hope they
mean,
don't go moving on their own.
if they do, we have a different problem.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm gonna be here. I'm ready for it.
Sweet. So
Wait,
please,
sweet or
too sweet,
too sweet?
too sweet. Oh, you did it.
Not that that has anything to do with what's going on right now,
I always have something to do.
but
Always has
you just
something
said
to do.
sweet, and it was like, okay, what?
Well, please like, comment, subscribe, let us know how we're doing, and let us know what you want to see. We really appreciate it.
Also, tell us, are you a Bret guy or a Shawn guy?
Yes, like to know.
And if you don't know, I advise you watch the same matches because you'll probably come out with the same, um, I guess,
Epiphany?
yeah, Tiff Epiphany that
Yes.
I had. But if you want to be fair, maybe watch multiple matches and then you could decide are you Bret guy or Shawn
That's
guy,
probably best.
and let us know.
Bella, I love wrestling.
I know.